You won't believe how this story ends, and that's why I need you to stick with me until the very last second, because the moment that changed everything for a 4-star general wasn't on a battlefield, it was in a silent, empty school hallway. And it's a moment that will change how you see your own life, too. So make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because we're about to dive into a story about losing everything to find what truly matters. General Eleanor Vance stood at the pinnacle of her career, a living legend. Her office at the Pentagon was a museum of her achievements, framed medals, flags from liberated territories, photographs with presidents. She commanded hundreds of thousands of troops, her voice an instrument of strategy and power that could shift the fate of nations. But in a single, cruel year, the fortress of her life was besieged. It started with a diagnosis, pancreatic cancer, that stole her husband of 35 years, a gentle architect who had been her anchor to the civilian world. Then, in what felt like a heartless administrative coup, she was forced into early retirement, her authority and identity stripped away by a new political administration that saw her as a relic. The final, crushing blow came when her only son, unable to bridge the chasm of grief between them, told her he needed space and moved across the country. At 62, General Eleanor Vance, who had once directed armies, now presided over an empty, echoing house filled only with the ghosts of what she had been. The silence was the enemy she didn't know how to fight. Days bled into weeks, each one a gray, featureless landscape of regret and hollowed-out pride. Her friends, all former colleagues, didn't know how to talk to the woman she had become, a civilian, a widow, a ghost. Desperate for any structure, any purpose to force her out of bed, she took the only job she could find that asked no questions of her past, a nighttime security guard at Lincoln Elementary School. It was a bitter pill to swallow. Walking the same linoleum floors she had once trodden as a child felt like a cosmic joke. She traded her dress blues for a cheap polyester uniform, her command center for a tiny office with a flickering fluorescent light, and the weight of national security for the duty of ensuring no one stole computers from a third-grade classroom. Her nights were a solitary patrol. She would move through the darkened halls, her footsteps echoing, her mind replaying a lifetime of decisions, deployments missed, birthdays forgotten, the last, strained conversation with her son. She was a ghost haunting the scene of her own childhood, a living monument to failure. She began to see the school's late-night janitor, a man named Leo, but she offered him little more than a curt nod. He was a single dad in his 40s, his face etched with a different kind of tired than hers, the tired of someone who never stopped moving. She often saw his young daughter, Maya, a girl of about 7, sitting at a desk in an empty classroom, coloring quietly while her father mopped the halls. Eleanor would watch them from a distance, a strange, aching feeling in her chest. Their silent, symbiotic partnership was a stark contrast to her own profound isolation. The change began on a rainy Tuesday. During her rounds, Eleanor entered the school library and found Maya, not coloring, but staring with intense frustration at a large, complex puzzle spread across a table. It was a map of the world. The girl's small hands were clenched into fists, and a single tear traced a path down her cheek. Leo was busy, his back turned as he polished the far-off floors. Something in Eleanor, a long-dormant instinct to assess and solve a problem, stirred. She approached cautiously. "It's a big world to put together," Eleanor said, her voice raspy from disuse. Maya looked up, startled. "I can't find where this piece goes," she whispered, holding up a piece shaped like Italy. "I've tried everywhere." Without thinking, Eleanor sat down. "That's the boot," she said, her general's mind instantly accessing topographic maps and strategic coastlines. "It kicks into the Mediterranean. Look for the blue sea and the shape of Sicily nearby." She guided Maya's small hand, not taking over, but directing. "See. Intelligence gathering. Then, decisive action." Over the next hour, the 4-star general and the janitor's daughter assembled the world. Eleanor found herself telling Maya stories, not of war, but of the places. The pyramids of Egypt, the glaciers of Norway, the bustling markets of Morocco. She hadn't realized she still had these stories in her. Maya listened, her eyes wide, her frustration replaced by wonder. When Leo came to find her, he stopped at the doorway, watching the scene, his daughter, laughing, and the stern, lonely security guard smiling a genuine, unguarded smile for the first time he had ever seen. After that night, a tentative friendship blossomed. Eleanor started bringing 2 thermoses of hot chocolate on her shifts, one for her, one for Maya. She'd help with homework, finding a fierce joy in explaining math problems and history lessons. In return, Maya gave Eleanor something priceless, uncomplicated admiration. She didn't see a failed general or a retired relic, she saw a wise, kind woman who knew everything about the world. Leo, initially wary, began to soften. He'd join them for brief breaks, sharing simple stories of his own struggles, working 2 jobs, the fear of not being enough for his bright, curious daughter. The pivotal moment, the one that changed everything in seconds, came during the school's science fair. Maya had worked for weeks on a project about bridge construction, inspired by Eleanor's stories of Roman aqueducts. The night before the fair, she and her father stayed late to put the finishing touches on the display in the gym. Eleanor was on duty, giving them space but watching from the periphery with a swell of pride she hadn't felt in years. As Leo climbed a small ladder to hang a backdrop, the ladder slipped. He fell hard, his head striking the corner of a table with a sickening crack. He lay on the gym floor, unconscious and bleeding. Maya screamed, a sound of pure terror that shattered the quiet night. Eleanor's body moved before her mind could process. The training of a lifetime, buried under grief and self-pity, surged to the surface. In seconds, she was at Leo's side, her fingers on his neck checking for a pulse. It was there, but thready. "Maya, my radio. Now. It's on my belt," she commanded, her voice not loud, but imbued with an absolute authority that brooked no panic. The little girl, trembling, unhooked the radio and handed it to her. Eleanor called in the emergency, her voice crisp and clear, giving their exact location and the nature of the injury. Then, she tore a strip from her own uniform shirt, applying firm pressure to the wound on Leo's head, all the while keeping her eyes locked on Maya's. "Look at me, soldier," Eleanor said, her voice softening but no less commanding. Maya's tear-filled eyes met hers. "Your dad is strong. We have a mission. Your mission is to breathe with me. In and out. My mission is to stop this bleeding. Our mission is to keep him safe until the cavalry arrives. Do you understand me?" Maya, mesmerized by the strength in Eleanor's eyes, nodded, mimicking her breathing. In that moment, the gym transformed from a scene of chaos into a controlled operation. Eleanor was no longer a security guard, she was a general again, but a different kind. She was protecting her own. When the paramedics burst in minutes later, they found a calm, controlled scene. Eleanor gave them a concise, perfect report of the incident and the patient's vitals. At the hospital, as Leo was rushed into surgery, Eleanor held Maya's hand. The little girl looked up at her and said, "You saved him." "We saved him," Eleanor corrected gently. "Leo survived. The injury was serious, but the doctors said the swift, correct action in those first critical seconds had prevented a far worse outcome." During his recovery, the dynamic between the 3 of them solidified into a family. Eleanor used her veterans' benefits and her formidable organizational skills to navigate the medical bureaucracy for Leo. She drove Maya to school, helped with her projects, and slowly, began to rebuild a life, not the life she had lost, but a new, richer one. One evening, as Leo was regaining his strength, he asked her the question she had been avoiding. "Eleanor, who are you, really? No one acts like that in a crisis unless they've been in 1,000 of them." So, for the first time, she told them. She showed them the pictures in her phone, the medals in a box she'd kept in her trunk. She told them about her husband, her son, her fall from grace. She wept, and they listened, holding her hands. Months later, standing in her now warm and lived-in kitchen, cooking a meal for the 3 of them, Eleanor's phone rang. It was her son. "Mom," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I miss you. Can I come home for a visit?" As she hung up, tears of a different kind filled her eyes. She looked at Leo, who was helping Maya set the table, and she understood. The 4-star general had to lose everything, the stars, the command, the illusion of control, to discover that her true strength wasn't in commanding armies, but in saving one father, in loving one little girl, in mending one broken family, which in turn, began to mend her own. She had been searching for her purpose on global maps, but it was found in the simple, profound geography of the human heart. And that is a victory worth more than any medal. If this story reminded you that it's never too late for a second chance, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of hope and